Good morning. I'm Jeffrey Tobias. I'm the Managing Director of the Strategy Group. I'm from Sydney, which is on Gadigal land, and I acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we're working on, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and I pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging. Welcome to today's webinar, and thank you for joining us from literally all around the globe. We at the Strategy Group are thrilled to host this enlightening event as we continue our mission to empower organisations and individuals to excel in their desire to delight their customers and transform their organisations. As a leading Australian consulting firm, with this our 20th year, we pride ourselves on delivering cutting-edge strategies and actionable insights underpinned by human-centred design to help our clients achieve their goals and aspirations. Today, we have the immense pleasure of hosting an outstanding individual who has made a significant impact in their field. And we are truly honoured to have them share their expertise with us. Our distinguished guest, Bob Nowotny, has been a trailblazer in not only in the field of tunnelling and construction, but also in putting his customer at the centre, earning recognition and accolades for his innovative contribution. I'm certain that Bob will provide an engaging and informative presentation on the fascinating topic of customer centricity. This discussion promises to broaden our understanding, spark meaningful discussions, and showcase how the Strategy Group, together with Bob and his amazing senior leadership team, took a joint strategic approach over the past 18 months to drive success in today's challenging environment and the ever-changing landscape of construction. So without further ado, please join me in extending a warm welcome to our esteemed guest, Bob Nowotny, and let's embark on this exciting journey together. Bob, welcome.
Thank you, Jeffrey.
So where did all this begin?
I'm going to have to take you back 50 years ago, Jeffrey, in the 70s, early 70s, and you're at university. You had long hair then.
I did.
But I was a 9-year-old, and it was a weekend, and my father worked. He was one of these rare men that worked for a company all his life. And at that stage, he was a very senior executive in his manufacturing company. I think he was either MD or global sales manager, one of the two. I can't remember. But he had an urgent order that needed to go up to a prep plant in the Hunter Valley.
Right.
And we went up there. It was a bit unusual that my father would take these screens, these industrial screens, up to the prep plant.
Yeah.
But there'd been a failure in the screens that he provided not a week or two ago. So he took it upon him personally to go up and meet his long-term customer up there. And so we got up to the Hunter Valley, and we exchanged the screens. There was about 3 or 4 of them, and we loaded the failed screens onto the truck. And then my father asked this guy who he knew for about 10 years now if we could go underground, which we did. And as a 9-year-old, it was pretty exciting. He put a helmet on me, he put the cap lamp on me, self-rescuer. And in the PJB we went, which is a mine cruiser.
Yeah. And
down to the high wall we went. And look, we drove underground. It seemed like it was kilometres, but it was only probably 50 or 100 metres. And I was bitten. That was it. It was underground mining for me, and underground mining engineering.
Amazing.
So then turned the clock back 10 years, and I was at university working, and I was working for my father. And I'd earned the right to come into the sales department and get off the factory floor, and it was a bit of a family affair, this company. My uncle was actually the factory foreman. So I came off the factory floor, and I was doing engineering sales, as they called it.
Right.
And my very first customer was this customer from the Hunter Valley.
Wow.
Which was great. 10 years later, and 20 years association with the company. Anyway, we had the debrief, as my father would always have at the end of the day, which usually involved a bottle of scotch and a couple of cigars. And in those days, it's in the early 80s, it was pretty normal. And they wanted to congratulate my first couple of sales. in the company. And I said to Dad, you know, I got a sale off the gentleman down at up in the Hunter Valley, and it wasn't much, Dad, but you know, it was good. And he said, listen, son, it's been repeat business. It's been 20 years I've been dealing with this same customer, and it doesn't get any better than repeat business. And the advertisement we get out of that is second to none. So that was my introduction into underground mining and to customers.
So it's interesting you talk about underground mining and customers. You wouldn't necessarily put them together. I mean, why do you feel that customer centricity and putting the customer in the centre is important in your career? What lessons have you learned?
I guess I've always valued repeat business. I've always valued doing multiple projects for the same customer, whether that's a private customer or whether it's a public customer, and having that relationship and that rapport that we have between the two organisations. So I've always valued that. Even when I was in the mining division for one of the JV companies, we had repeat ongoing business that were our mainstay of our business.
Mm. Tell me a bit. I mean, you've got a lot of industry experience, huge amount of industry experience. Talk me through, Bob, a little around the conventional sort of bid process and the customer, the client, the contractor. What normally happens?
So the bid process for our government clients are normally done on a strict probity. It's basically a discovery of information, and often these clients have been working for the last 3 to 5 years on that project.
Right.
We come in as a contractor, and we're expected to, in 12 to 16 weeks, to basically put an all-encompassing bid on the table, and that's how we're going to build it, and know what risks are there. And quite often we don't go into enough detail with the customer to really understand what discovery they've had in the last 5 to 10 years, of 5 to 3 years, of the work they've done. And we've not taken that into account while we're tendering. We normally, because we're competent contractors and we build stuff, that's what we do for a living, we think we've got the answers. We know how we're going to build it. We go down a path of wanting to build it and sort of shelve what's been done before to one side at that stage. And we don't adequately explore that. And then when we get into delivery mode, the contracts are so prescribed. They're very prescribed. They come with very tight deeds or contracts. They've got very tight general specifications, particular specifications, and one could see that. I'll give you an example. The site facilities, the principal site facilities, are very prescribed. They tell you the number of chairs, the number of desks they want, crockery in the cupboard, the coffee that they want, to the IT requirements of, and it's all very prescribed, and it's always segregated away from the contractor's facilities. So it's a separate secured zone for the client to house themselves, and the same for the IC.
And do you think some of the aspects of this model that you're describing needs to change?
Yeah, it does. You know, you get mistaken that because it's so prescribed in the general specifications or the particular specifications, and even under the deed, that is the customer's expectation. And quite often, as we've found on this particular project, that isn't the customer's expectation. They want a bit more. Their experience is wanting a bit more from their contracts. They want more involvement.
So take me back to, say, March last year when we started working with you around. Walk me through a little around why you thought things had to be done differently, and at a high level, some of the things that you did affect that was different.
Yeah, we came off. So March 2022, we came in and started to tender this particular project. We came off a very heavy tender program. Prior to that, we had there were 2 jobs on offer, 3 consortias. We had built the last 2 projects and had experience. So we were a highly experienced team. So on the face of it, 2 projects, 3 consortias, 66% chance of winning a job. Right. As you can guess, we didn't win one of them. We didn't pick up any jobs. The other two consortia were the successful parties. We got some feedback, which we valued from the client. And one of them was that we really didn't understand the journey that they were on prior to bidding these jobs, and we didn't really listen to their pinch points and where they were going. But some of the most valuable feedback we got was the previous jobs that we had executed and done, and internally they met all our metrics. They financially, on time, quality was great. But the one feedback which we got anecdotally was that the customer experience wasn't that fantastic as a result of these two jobs, which we thought were fantastic. So we knew things had to change.
So why is the customer experience important?
These jobs are getting more and more complex, and particularly this job is a very complex job. There's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of things that, as a contractor, that we do need help with. There's government approvals that are needed. There are a lot of third-party interfaces. There are a lot of things that the customer can actually help us with to smooth the construction path for us. So things had to have changed on this job.
And if they hadn't changed?
We would probably not be at the stage that we are at now. I mean, we're working well together. We've been able to meet our milestones internally, internally as far as the construction goes, but we've been able to smooth the way to get a great start.
So if I again come back to March last year, the beginning of the process, when we started working with you, can you walk us through some of the things that you think were done differently that were really impactful?
Well, the first thing we did, we recognised that we probably needed an independent consultant to come in and provide us a bit of help.
That was good. Thank you.
Yeah, that was great. But we didn't want to go with traditional consultants that are out there. We wanted somebody that knew absolutely nothing about construction, but could help us with the customer centricity. So we decided that we'd go down that path. We'd also decided that we'd stage the discovery period where we'd ask a lot of questions about what had been done previously and try to discover what had been done previously, what worked, what didn't work, what was still on the table, what wasn't on the table, to form an idea of where we would head with the bid. We didn't actually start any of the telltale signs of construction or working out methodologies until we actually discovered what the client had been through before and where they'd been along with the journey and where were the pinch points on their particular job. So we actually went through a period of discovery where we just asked a load of questions. And then the second stage of that was testing a few ideas. So we tested a few ideas, just basically like spitballing, where we'd spitball. We would review what the feedback was from each interaction that we had, and we take it from there. So it was basically a building of momentum that we were embarking on.
So there are a few things that we thought were important working together with you around purpose and values. Do you want to talk a bit about that, Bob?
Yep. So very early on, the team got together, as we do, and we had a bit of a reflection on all of the feedback we got, and we put together. Luckily on this particular job, the senior leadership team basically were from the start, so they were pretty heavily invested in the values and the purpose, and everybody had a fair input into that process. So we developed a set of values and a set of and a purpose around the customer and around the experience of the customer through the tender period. And obviously these jobs under probity are difficult. You can only take it so far, and obviously you can only go so far. But at the end of the day, you're not going to fully discover all of the pinch points and all of the risks that are associated with a tender. Our purpose was to delight and to have a great experience for all, essentially. We didn't want to go down the path of of trying to push ideas and keep pushing ideas that were a waste of time. We wanted to get to ideas that could actually yield solutions rather than keep pushing our ideas, which we had done in the past, and basically not had that great experience from the other side, which is the customer.
You mentioned the word delight.
Yep.
And I remember over the past 18 months, when we first introduced the word delight, I was like, delight, where does delight feature in construction, building a tunnel? But now it's part of your vernacular, part of your language. You use it all the time.
It is.
So give us a bit of an insight into your thinking and how your thinking changed around the word delight.
So in order to delight somebody, you actually have to do something. You just can't, it's just not a smile. It's actually an action that you need to do to delight somebody. And my change in the thinking of the word delight was based around that. And I guess the team grasped on that, and we basically built on it. And yes, it is in our vernacular at the moment. It's a key word that we use. I quite often get a Turkish delight, thank you, on my desk, just to enforce the word delight.
So you assembled a bid team from different parts of the organisations. How did you bring them along for the journey around, for example, delight?
Yep. It was fairly easy because not only do you have to have that discovery with the client, you actually have to have the discovery with your team. We were based in the CBD, and one of the first things that became evident, we needed to move. There was an aura, having spent the last 18 months in the CBD, that we really needed a new office and a new bid office that was light, airy. It was, it was a good working environment, because the place we were in was just a bid office.
Yeah, it's great. Yep. I mean, the office is fabulous.
Yeah. So that was the first thing we changed. And then we introduced the Friday barbecue, the team building functions, and all of this doesn't cost a lot of money. I mean, it's, when you talk about it, but it is team building. And then the ownership that the guys and girls have taken in with the values. They really did own it, and they led every step of every interaction. So if we had a construction interaction, then the construction director would take that. If we had a design interactive, the design director would take that. And if we had an environmental interaction, then the environmental director would take the lead on that. All saying, we took a very different approach when we came to commercials, because that is the one area where there are some principles. There are some tricky spots that you've got to navigate through, and we took a very deliberate way of approaching that, which is we went through a technical base and looked at the clauses that were of particular importance to us through the lens of construction or design, and applying those clauses to how we were going to build the job, and walk the client through, well, is this really what you want? Is this the outcome that you're seeking? And quite often, to their credit, they said, no, well, we might need to change that a bit.
So is that mindset of, the client-centric approach different to what often happens?
Quite often, yeah, it is. Contractors are contractors for a reason, because we love to build stuff, right? We do, and we're good at it, very good at it. And quite often we ignore that the client is good at it as well. In my mining days, our biggest competitor wasn't actually the other contractors; it was actually the client self-performing the work. So I always came from a background where the client could actually execute the work through my mining days. So taking an approach with the government clients is that they have evolved their contracts from, in the early, in the late 90s or mid 90s to noughties, alliancing was all the rage. And then, through one cost blowout after another, they decided that they would shrink it back into a deed and be a bit more prescriptive. And now I can see the cycle opening up again, where we're getting a lot more ITCs, maybe a lot more collaborative approach into the contract space, and maybe a few alliances coming along the wind as well.
So in the lead up to the bid towards the end of 2022, you feel that, I mean, often you do things internally, but you're not sure whether they're visible. You feel that this focus on customer centricity and putting the client in the center was visible to the client?
Yes, yeah. We didn't hide anything. So we went into the interactives. We told them what our purpose was. You know, we had the strategy group in the background. They knew the strategy group were there. We told the client that we needed a bit of a help with our tender process internally, and we walked them through every step of the way with the tender, and we were upfront and honest.
So tell me, and you were successful. I mean, yeah. So you just want to, how did you feel?
Delighted.
Delighted.
We're all delighted. Of course, Jeffrey.
And we were delighted too.
We were, because I guess in our purpose, it wasn't about winning the tender. It was all about the experience, about our ultimate customer, which is, you know, the commuters, and it's about the experience that we're getting from both parties.
So Bob, walk me through. So that was November, December. So now you're in delivery.
We are.
We're now in May, so it's
We are.
a few months into delivery. Give me a feeling of the work that was done, that we did all through last year. How does that spilled over now into delivery? Has it made a difference?
Yes, it has. So we took a very deliberate strategy where the bid team, the SLT, would carry on into delivery. So we were all heavily invested and heavily invested in our values, heavily invested in the process, heavily invested in what experience we were going to have with the customer. And glad to say that the transaction team from the client actually remained the same. So their core team remained the same and carried on through delivery, which has been a great help. The relationship's already been formed. Traditionally, the bid team would come in and we call them the promising department, and then the delivery team would come in and we call them the sorry department, traditionally. But here we've been able to carry on with the senior leadership team and the senior managers that were involved, and we've been able to carry on through the tender process into delivery. So we're all aligned to start with. We had a bit of fine tuning to go, and then we had to start that with our client as well, because during the transaction we weren't able to do the collaboration workshops that we wanted to do because of probity. Because of probity. But we did that almost, I think, at week 1 or week 2 of this project. So we started very early. We already had a good rapport with key members of the transaction team. We just wanted to enhance that and bed that down as soon as possible.
So how did you do that?
We held a workshop with their senior leadership team, and basically went through and developed some new values and refined a new purpose together.
I mean, it's interesting you talk about values. I mean, the parent companies would have had values, the client would have had values. Why did you feel that it was necessary for us to recreate values again?
Team purpose.
So what do you mean?
It's basically for our team, for ETP. And the team purpose was to align everybody, to basically get people to gel over some values, and they were very similar to the values from the client, and they were very similar to the values of the corporate companies. They were just a refinement so that everybody could have a bit of buy-in to the values.
And has it made a difference?
Yes, it has. Yeah.
How?
Yeah. We have a MVP award that's based purely on values and given out to a team member every month, and that is decided between the client and myself, who receives the award. So we basically hold the values and display the values and reward the values if they're lived.
So, am I right? The values that we created, they were created together with the client. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And was that important?
Yes, it was.
Why?
Because we needed to get everybody on board, one team. We had to be one team to execute this job. We need the sum of all parts rather than just the sum of one part to get this job through. There's a lot of moving parts in this job. There's a lot of third parties. There's a lot of work that needs to be done behind the scenes, and we need to help each other to get that through.
Okay, so with what, 2 years, 3 years, we're in the process. We're still early on. I mean, if you think back, Bob, over the last year, if you think back, Bob, through your experience in the past, give me and give people on this call some lessons learned. What would be some of the things that you think you could impart to the people listening in around the change that's happened, the way we went about it, the outcome that's there? Give us some insights.
Yeah, I'd say that you've got to start with your team almost straight away. You actually have to be aligned internally before you can actually go externally. That was very important that we aligned ourselves internally, and where we didn't have a culture fit, we worked out where the disconnect was. But we all had to be singing off the same hymn sheet, if you like, through the tender process and through delivery. It was important for everybody to be invested in the values and be invested in the process. And by and large, the senior leadership team took that on. So that was important to us. Then I guess you need to get in with the client very quickly. You need to then do the same process with the client. You need to understand where their pinch points are. You need to understand what works, what doesn't work, how they want to operate, because obviously people are different, and how we want to interact with each other. It's important to understand that. But the most important thing I think is we don't want to be surprising each other. And we have another mantra, which is no surprises, right? But you don't want to be surprising everybody. You want to talk about issues up front. And there are a couple of meetings that we hold that are prescribed, that we hold, which are probably our better meetings, because they're full of, they're basically put everything on the table. It's like Chatham House rules: close the door and just get it out on the table, and we call that an early warning. But we just talk about what issues are coming up, what may affect us from both parties. It's not one-way street, and how that relates to the project.
What about lessons learned about the team? I mean, again, coming back to, you've got a diverse team of people who have been years and years and years in construction, lots of experience. We're now introducing words like delight. We're introducing words like collaboration. We're introducing around, one team. How challenging do you think it is? I mean, you live this, right? So it's in your DNA, and that DNA has made this successful. What about other organizations that are trying to do this? Give them some pointers around what they should do.
Well, I need to get the senior leadership on board first. Quite often, the internal metrics are a hindrance to working in the collaborative space. Some organisations are adapt to it and some aren't. And I say that broadly. I don't say that specifically about any organisation, but broadly. But there has to be a desire and the freedom to do things. And through our joint venture partners, we've been able to have that freedom to do something a bit different. It was almost mandated that I do something a bit different to change the way we go about our interaction with our clients.
What about, do you think, in the industry as a whole? Do you think there's a desire and a need for change, or do you think people should just keep doing what they've been doing?
No, that's the definition of insanity, Jeffrey, isn't it? Just keep doing what you're doing. I personally, myself, I'd rather come to work every day, not fighting, not arguing. Yes, there are going to be problems. We understand that. We grow up in the construction organisation or the field. We understand that there's going to be issues, but we need to solve it for the best of the project, not for the best advantage that anybody can leverage off each other.
Fantastic. Look, I think there's some questions from the people here. So let me just have a look. So if you look about bringing the entire organisation along, so you've now got a large organisation. You've stood up, effectively standing up you're effectively CEO of a couple of hundred, a few hundred people.
Mm.
You stood that organisation up in a very short period of time.
So I'm a startup.
You're a startup with several hundred people, but bigger budget than a startup normally has. It's true.
True.
So how are you bringing the entire organisation along for the journey?
Yeah, that's actually a very good question, because that's where you can do the culture piece with the senior leadership team. You can get your senior leadership team invested in the process, and that's where it stops. And I see that time and time again. We do have a program to filter the values and the purpose down through the ranks, if you like, in terms of the whole organisation. And we have a program called the Championship Future, which we've developed, and we're using another crowd to come and facilitate that with us, and to drive that down to the to everybody within the project, including the client side, including the contractor
So you're
side.
talking about people out in the field,
Out in the field,
hanging off a raft somewhere in high vis gear.
they're not hanging off rafts, but they're doing productive work. And
Right.
but yes, and obviously people need to be invested. I think the collaboration, respect, passion, ownership are 4 values that everybody can at least take a part of that and hold very dear to themselves.
Passion's interesting value, Bob.
Very, very interesting.
Yeah.
You have to have a bit of passion, Jeffrey.
Yeah, but you're building something.
You can do things impassionately, but we are in construction because we are passionate people. We love to build social infrastructure. That's what we love to do.
Yeah. So that's one of the values, isn't it?
It is one of the values. Yep.
Amazing. Okay.
Yep.
So look, if you've got some questions, please put them in the chat. With delight, we've got a few minutes still to go, so we'd love to get some questions from people out there. I've actually got another one. So personally, if it comes back to you, Bob, again, you've done things in your career the way you've done them. How are you personally feeling about this change, about doing things differently? We've been on this journey together for 18 months. Give us some insight into when you go home in the evening, what are some of the emotions that you feel?
Yeah, look, I'm very comfortable. I'm very comfortable in the space I'm at. I've always had a certain bent on the way projects should be run. Mining has taught me one thing is that you work very closely together. That has always been a challenging aspect of my career. I've been involved in alliances where I've had embedded in the team parts of the client's team, embedded in the project team, which is a unique proposition. I have to tell you, it has its challenges, right? But I'm comfortable in the space I am at the moment. I really am, and I hope everybody else is as well. There's nothing more than we're doing here than basically interacting with people who have the same passion and desire to see this project to its successful conclusion.
Look, I hear what you say. I also have the feeling that what we've done together has been transformative. And I guess I'm interested in how you feel about being at the pointy edge of transformation in a relatively conventional industry.
Yeah, I mean, there's other D&C jobs out there that have co-located premises with the client as well. Within my own JV, there are a number of jobs that have that. There are like-minded project directors out there that feel that business can be done better. Yeah, people are going to say that, I'm probably not, I'm not extracting as much as I should out of the project because I'm not doing the traditional way of delivery. But for this particular project, it does need something different. It is a different project.
Yeah, I've got a question here, Bob, from someone that says, what's been the most useful research methodology to uncover customers' needs, which has led to service innovation? So what sort of, what research methodology, how we give us an insight into some of the things that we've done from a methodology perspective to uncover those customer needs?
So I guess research is a word. I mean, most of our discovery of methodologies and what are the pinch points in terms of what the customer's needs are is from talking with the customer, basically engaging with the customer, understanding what their pinch points are, understanding where we can go with options. How would that affect their wider organisation? Because there's obviously a wider organisation that sits out and above the project delivery team.
But people always talk to the customer.
They do and they don't, Jeffrey. They do and they don't. In the construction industry, we very rarely have a good, meaningful dialogue and a full understanding of what actually they can do for the project. They're often seen as the post box. They're often seen as the team that sits there and audits and does the completion, but there is a wider organisation out there that can help you with the project.
So one of the things that we spend a lot of time working with you and the team was around open-ended questions and sort of asking why, as opposed to, should we do this or should we do that? Do you think that was of value?
It was. We quite often didn't get to the root of the answer until we got to the fifth why occasionally. And I know, look, it can be annoying at times, but you really, at that stage, you can't dance around with it. You need to get to the crux of what the issue is. And if the issue is that it just won't go through the bureaucracy, then that's the answer you need to hear, because if it can't get through the layers of government to do something, then it's probably better off going around another route, because we can't keep continuing.
Okay, excellent. I've got another question here. It's great to hear words like delight and passion as values. How would you suggest we sell these values to traditional senior leadership teams? Good question.
That's a good question. How do you sell it? Well, I certainly, while I was giving my debriefs to the senior leadership, I certainly introduced them to another terminology, was a secret sauce. I love that. And they saw the word delight, and I had to explain why I used delight. I think it's a slow process, but it's a process that's starting to. I can see it actually evolving in a couple of that I'm associated with now. So you can see it sort of taking off. It's sort of a bit of messaging and a bit of using the terminologies to filter it through the companies. But I think the companies themselves want to have a desire to change. That's got to be the first catalyst. If they have that true desire to change and they want to do business a little bit differently, and they can see the benefits of doing business a little bit differently, then I think it's an easy task.
So that desire, so a question I have, I mean, in our dealings with you and the leadership team over the past 18 months, one of the things that's been fantastic, you've been so open. You personally have been so open to thinking differently and change, and the SLT has as well. And that's just been a delight from us to work with you around that. Is that the norm, or have we got something unique here?
I wouldn't say we've got anything unique here. I think the SLT, they are fantastic. They're heavily invested in the process. They're heavily invested in the project. They understand the importance of filtering down our values and our visions to their people. They want to make this a success, this job. There's obviously a lot of work associated with this. There's a lot of work that we do in the background. This is just not something we've dreamt up. We have worked on it. But the SLT are completely invested in it, which is fantastic, and have been invested in since day one.
And do you think they need to be for success in a project like this?
Yes, they do. Yeah, I think if there was one person that wasn't invested, that may undermine what we've been doing. But I don't have that fear at the moment.
Yeah. So we've got a couple of minutes left in time, but I've got another question here. What single thing that you've done that's made the most difference so far in pursuing customer intimacy? So, and what has been the biggest challenge on the journey so far? So double barrel question.
It's all the one and the same. I guess the open, we've got an open office. There are no walls between the customer and us. I can actually throw a stone across the hall and a ball and the client will catch it. That has been a challenge, not to the JV organisation, but it's been a challenge to our client to get that over the line because of concerns around security, obviously, but concerns about how they security of their information, and that's been a real challenge. But the project team have really come to, I think, value that the openness of the office, those kitchen conversations that we're able to have, those events that we have with barbecues or just even getting our lunch together, in the kitchen. Those conversations are invaluable. And that is something we don't traditionally have in construction. You don't have that. You normally have your own area. You segregate it from the IC. You segregate it from the client, and you don't have the opportunity to have those conversations.
Yeah, so this is true collaboration, isn't
It is, yeah. It's an open office. It's a fully integrated office. There are no walls between us. In actual fact, the two commercial teams sit in the same vicinity as each other.
Yeah, so this is really embodying this one team concept that we've tried to pursue all the way through, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And would that be an advice of yours to others?
I advise them to consider it. If the job needs it, and let's face it, most infrastructure jobs are very complex these days. There are a lot of issues, a lot of moving parts. There are a lot of work that needs to be done between the contractor and the client equally to get the job over the line as smoothly as possible. Yeah, eventually it'll get done, but I'd rather it get done quickly and without minimum of fuss if I could. If I need a kitchen conversation to facilitate that, then that would be my suggestion.
Over the next 6 months, how are you going to embed some more of these, secret sauce things into the organization as more and more and more people join who don't have the knowledge that you've had, don't have the lived experience, just coming to do a job? What are some of the things you're looking to do?
So we have our Championship Future program, which everybody will go on in terms of a high performing team, understanding the values, understanding what values are important to them, understanding how they can interact with their counterparts, not only internally but externally, how they interact with each other, even to the point of how they communicate, what is their style of leadership or what is their style of management, so that they've got a bit of self-awareness around what they do. And look, not everybody's going to fit into the ETP mold as well. We've got to be realistic about that. And occasionally people won't want to be at our project. But the Championship Future is our way of disseminating that through our ranks.
Yeah. Bob, we said we'd grab you for 45 minutes of your time. We're pretty much out of time. We could talk for another couple of hours around this. I mean, this is an amazing success story. Any concluding remarks?
No. Thank you for having me, Jeffrey, and yeah, thank you.
Yeah, look, just in closing, I mean, it's been our privilege to work with you. As you said, when we came in, we knew very little about construction. You knew the technical aspects, you know how to build, you know how to deliver. What we brought to the table was an outside-in perspective around customer centricity, putting the customer in the center. And it's been an amazing journey, I think, for both of us and for both of our teams. But the blend of that technical expertise and that industry experience and that lived experience in the industry that you brought and your team brought, and that outside in focus on the value of the customer, when you brought them together, it was magic, really. I mean, we've so much enjoyed engaging with you. Your team's an amazing team, so open. They've been listening to learn. We've been learning all along the way. And it's just amazing when you blend those two characteristics and capabilities, what you end up with. So thank you for that opportunity.
Thank you.
It's been a delight working with you, and it's a delight to continue work with you into delivery and continue to add value. Hopefully this discussion has been of interest to people out in the world. We're delighted that so many people have joined and logged in. You can see it's a topical topic, and it should be, because as we say internally in the strategy group, what we're both doing really is we're transforming industries here. It's not just around the particular job. It's around we're actually changing mindsets, shifting mindsets in an industry that has traditionally done what it's done. And that is a vision for both of us, I think, has been where we've headed, and it's borne fruit. You can't ask for more than it's done. So, Bob, thank you very much. It's been a great pleasure. Thank you, everyone who's joined today. It's been a delight to chat with Bob here. It's been a delight to share some of the insights that we've both learned over the past 18 months. And we wish you well for the rest of the day.